Hi everybody, Shannon Petrovich with Therapist Talks. We're going to do a Q&A today and we'll see how this goes. It's a new format and it's just going to be casual and conversational. I'm going to address some of the questions that came up this week for people. If you like the format, please let me know in the comments section and also add new questions. So let's just jump right in. The first question I want to address is about having second guessing and confusion and regret around leaving a long-term relationship with someone with narcissistic tendencies or traits. So this is a really challenging question for people and comes up a lot in therapy sessions with my clients and obviously on this channel. So what I want to encourage you all to do is to sort of have a two mindset. So part of us is very emotional, very reactive, and another part is sort of able to step back and be what we call wise mind. And one of the ways to approach this is to have your own therapist, obviously, if you can. This channel is never a replacement for having your own therapist. But if you don't have your own therapist, then you can journal with yourself or you can talk to a trusted friend or family member. In your journaling, make sure that you list off all the toxic experiences that you've had with this person. Make sure that you look at the reality of what this relationship has been like for you. Look at the way it's affected you, affected the way you feel about yourself, about the way you feel about your life and the world, how you start to treat yourself differently, how you've internalized some of their hatefulness or their devaluing, and so that you are continuing to devalue yourself. So you want to look at all of that in a really objective, wise mind way. And then looking at your emotions as sort of a separate thing. So when you look at the objective issues and you can see that really clearly, then you can make a decision based on that. Then when you see your emotions pop up, the fear of the unknown, the grief, those are really important emotions and you have to acknowledge those and look at those and nurture those and take care of those, but you don't want to make decisions based on those. So in other words, you make decisions based on wise mind, what you know to be true. If this relationship is toxic to you, toxic to your kids, it's negative and unhealthy, then you know you need to make that decision to get out, and taking care of your emotions separately so that you don't make decisions based on your emotions. Our culture is really messed up about this. You constantly hear everything from songs to even armchair therapists saying, go with your heart. Well, that's oftentimes really a bad way to make decisions because our heart might pull us way back into that relationship. We might be so trauma bonded to that person that we're really, really pulled back into that relationship when we know with our wise mind we shouldn't be in that relationship. So you have to see these two parts of ourselves as separate, and you have to make decisions from wise mind and then nurture and take care of your emotions, but learning how to do those yourself, taking care of yourself and your emotions and not making decisions based on those emotions. You're going to go through grief. You're going to go through second guessing yourself. You're going to go through, looking at how you could have done things differently, and you have to take care of those things, but take care of them yourself. Don't take care of them by going back into the relationship, basically burying those emotions by going back into the relationship. So that's the answer to that question, making sure that you look at those two parts of yourself and taking a step back, making a decision from wise mind, taking care of the emotional stuff. All right. The next question is really interesting. It's about, can a narcissist change? And this is a very complex thing, and the person asked with a lot of depth to their question, which I appreciate. Apparently, there are two different systems out there for how to deal with a narcissist, and I want to address both of those. So the first, the answer to that question is theoretically, yes, a person with narcissistic personality or narcissistic traits can change. In reality, it happens rarely, very, very rarely. So why is that? Well, by definition, person with narcissistic personality disorder doesn't see their problems as their problems. They see their problems as happening to them because of somebody else. And so if you can't own your own issues and you can't own the things that you're creating in your life, you can't change them. And so the person with narcissistic personality sees everything that's happening to them as them being the victim of everything. They don't see their responsibility. They don't see their own actions as having created the problems that they're having. So that's one reason we rarely see people with narcissistic personalities show up in therapy. When they do, it's usually because a partner dragged them there, and they're usually only there to manipulate the therapist into being on their side, to beating up on their partner, and to making it clear that all the problems in the relationship are really the other person's fault, not the narcissist's fault. So I have a colleague who's a psychiatrist who says providing therapy for a narcissist is just teaching them to be a better manipulator. And we as therapists have to be really cautious about that, because when a narcissist does show up in therapy and it is with a partner, usually they're going to be manipulating the therapist, and they're usually also learning from the therapist how to manipulate their partner better. So that's a really slippery slope, and we as therapists have to be super careful about that. So when we look at whether they can change, yes, they can. Are they going to change? Rarely. If you're in a relationship with a narcissist and they say they'll change, the important thing to do is to set those boundaries, to step away from the relationship, let them go do their thing, let them go do their therapy. And if they do change, then you can see that from a distance. You're not going to ever see it from within the relationship, because they're just too enmeshed in and immersed in their manipulations, and you're too trauma bonded to them to see change for what it is, if there is change, and not to just get sucked in and stay sucked in. The other thing to know is that narcissism is a narcissistic personality, and all disorders are really on a spectrum. So there are mild forms, there are moderate forms, and there are severe forms. People with severe form narcissistic personality are not going to change. You cannot, you're not going to ever see change with those people. So it's really important to take distance and keep separated from that person. In the mild to moderate, sometimes you're going to see change. But again, you have to make boundaries, and you have to stay out of the relationship with them as they make those changes, because it's just too sticky to stay in relationship with them while they're trying to change. Most importantly, you have to take care of yourself and learn to really honor your own emotions, and not to stay in that placating and enmeshed role with them. So what specifically does a healed narcissist look like? What that looks like, and then actually the other question around that is, what are these strategies and goals? So for me, I like to look at what are the messages that are the beliefs and messages and stories that drive a person's emotions, that drive their actions. So this is cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. And there's a whole bunch of trauma-based therapies enmeshed in that too, or engaged in that too. So when we look at someone with narcissistic traits, you really want to look at the stories that they are telling themselves around ego and around entitlement. And when you look at that, you want to look at those stories that drive their belief system that says that they're entitled to have everybody do for them and focus on them and be about them all the time. Those are the stories that they need to take out, take a look at, see that they're not true, that they are myths of control, that they are myths of entitlement, and they're myths about everybody needing to inflate their ego all the time. When you can take those myths out and look at them honestly and disconnect from them, then you can heal and you can change. So those are the kinds of things that a therapist should look at with a narcissist. So the two uh, parts that, or the two therapists and strategies that this person asked about is COHUT, restoring the narcissist once injured true self. So this is a really slippery slope. I think that a lot of times if you are walking down that path with the narcissist into their past and their wounded child self, you have to be very, very careful that you're just not going into that excuse basically for treating other people badly. When you stay immersed in the past with a narcissist, immersed in their trauma, you without looking at their current behavior and their current entitlement and their current ego and how that is playing out in their current relationships, I think you're entertaining the narcissist, and I think you're engaging them further in their victimhood and in their attacking from victimhood, as Pia Mellody put it. So this means that they are immersed in that story about being a victim of other people's stuff or whatever, and that they're entitled to attack other people with their hurt. And this is oftentimes where a lot of those narcissistic abuse injuries come from, and then there's that whole pull of, well, I was just feeling my sadness from blah, blah, blah when I attacked you. Well, that's not an excuse. I'm sorry, that's just not an excuse. So when you're treating a narcissist, if you're going down that rabbit hole of their past hurts too much without looking at their current day behavior, then I think you're entertaining the narcissist, and I think you're deepening their belief that they can attack from victimhood. So what you want to stay focused on is their here and now behavior, how they want to change that, looking at building empathy is one really important piece, helping them look at the world from another person's perspective, helping them see how they are injuring other people and how they are hurting other people, helping them take ownership of that and really stepping back from that in the moment before it happens and recognizing it consistently. Then the other Schwartz and Salient, which was saying that a therapist is a lifelong sewage system for a wealthy patient's bad behavior, that just makes me cringe. So what they're saying is that therapist was sort of taking on that role of allowing that person to dump their sewage on them. And again, I think that's just entertaining the narcissist. And especially when it's the wealthy person's bad behavior, I think as a therapist, I have to not care whether that person keeps coming back. I have to be so direct and so honest and so blunt that I'm going to get the work done with that person. I care about them enough to get the work done. And if they can't hear it or don't want to hear it or don't want to do that work, and they want to dump me and find somebody else that's going to entertain them or sit with them in that sewage, cool. Like, I can't be so enmeshed with that person that I'm not going to tell them the truth. So as a therapist, I want to talk about their entitlement, their ego, their hurtfulness towards others, their lack of responsibility in their lives, and I want to direct them inward into those things. And I don't want to entertain the past too much. I don't want to allow that to become their main focus or their only focus, because they need to look at their here and now relationships, taking responsibility, looking at the stories that drive those emotions, that drive those behaviors. So to that degree, we do look at the past and how those stories got created, but we're not going to wallow in that. We're not going to stay stuck in that, and we're not going to allow any of that to become victimhood and attacking from victimhood and then justifying it from that hurt place inside. So I hope this has been helpful. That's all I've got time for today. And again, please let me know in the comment section whether this is a good format for you. Let's build on these. Send me some more questions. Take really good care of yourselves. Set good boundaries with people. And I'll talk to you again soon.